Picture this. It's dawn, October 24th, 79 AD. You're waking up on a beautiful, completely ordinary morning in the Roman Empire. And honestly, nowhere in the world is life sweeter than right here along the magnificent Bay of Naples. The air is cool, the sky is clear, but in just a few hours, the world is literally going to split wide open over the empire's most prosperous corner. Let's get right into this explainer.
The dramatic irony of this moment is just staggering. The folks living in this region, a place they literally called the fortunate countryside, are just bustling about their day. They're smelling fresh bread baking in the city's 35 bakeries. They are completely, totally unaware that their beloved, lush green mountain in the background is actually a geological time bomb. I mean, the concept of an active volcano doesn't even exist in their vocabulary yet.
And right in the shadow of that mountain, you've got these two incredibly different sister cities. On one side, Pompeii, right? It's this proud, noisy, middle-class commercial engine just bursting with 20,000 souls, delivery carts rattling around, and fast food stalls. And then, just to the west, Herculaneum. This was the exclusive, wealthy seaside resort for Roman aristocrats. Think serene, manicured villas and private libraries. Their daily lives couldn't have been more different, but they were about to meet the exact same monstrous fate.
The terrifying truth here is that the Earth was literally shouting at them. Look at the timeline. 17 years earlier, a massive earthquake nearly wiped Pompeii off the map, but the Romans mistakenly blamed angry gods instead of rising magma. Then, in those final days, the underground heat got so extreme that wells just suddenly dried up. The water that was left tasted like metal. A foul sulfur smell drifted through the air. Sheep were literally slamming against their pens trying to escape, and birds completely vanished from the sky. The warning signs were everywhere.
But almost everyone dismissed these omens. Well, everyone except for one guy. Across the bay in Misenum, the scientist and admiral of the Roman fleet, Pliny the Elder, was watching these terrifying signs with deep, deep curiosity. When a dead bird fell into one of his ships, he didn't pray, he examined it. He genuinely believed reason could explain anything. He just had absolutely no idea he was about to collide with a force entirely beyond human logic.
And then, at 1 p.m. on that fateful October afternoon, the ticking clock finally runs out. The unimaginable pressure of magma that had been building up for centuries just shatters the mountain's hard stone plug with a deafening, earth-shattering explosion. Carts are toppling in the streets, roof tiles are raining down on Pompeii, and this historical thriller plunges into absolute chaos. But the crazy part? The true danger wasn't actually coming from the ground. It was coming from the sky. From that ruptured summit, this monstrous column of ash and rock just shot upward at supersonic speeds, punching straight through the clouds. Pliny the Elder's nephew, an 18-year-old named Pliny the Younger, actually watched this happen from across the bay. He described the terrifying ash column as looking exactly like a tall, flat-topped Mediterranean pine tree. And his description was so incredibly accurate that even today, modern volcanologists still use his name, the Plinian phase, to describe these massive explosive eruptions. So within hours, the midday sun vanishes completely behind this massive cloud. A thick rain of white pumice stones starts falling over Pompeii. And as the afternoon wears on, those stones turn heavy and gray and hot. Midday literally becomes pitch black. So put yourself in their shoes for a second. What do? I mean, do you flee blindly into absolute darkness, walking on hot gravel as rocks rain down on your head? Or do you barricade yourself inside the thick stone walls of your home and just pray you can wait out the storm? It's just a horrifying, tragic irony. Fleeing felt like a total suicide mission, so countless families chose to stay indoors. But those thick stone walls, they couldn't save them. The pumice stones were light on their own, sure, but millions of them piled up on those flat Roman roofs, weighing literal tons. By late afternoon, the wooden beams groaned and just gave way. Entire families were crushed or buried alive by this relentless, burning snow. The very places they went for sanctuary had instantly become their tombs. Now, while Pompeii is suffocating, Pliny the Elder gets a desperate plea for help from his friend Rexina, who was trapped at the foot of Vesuvius. Realizing the sheer scale of the catastrophe, the great scientist instantly shifts into the heroic admiral. He orders his massive four-oared Roman warships straight into the blackened, churning sea. And when his pilots warn him that it's basically a suicide mission, Pliny issues this legendary command: fortune favors the bold. And with that, he sails directly into the volcanic storm. But despite his incredible bravery, the mission is doomed from the start. The sea is just choked with floating, charred rock. making a landing at Herculaneum totally impossible. So Pliny diverts south to Stabiae, where he finds his terrified friends. And in this supreme display of composure, this remarkable guy actually asks for a bath, eats dinner, and goes to sleep while a literal volcano is raging outside. But unrelenting onshore winds trap them all on the beach, and as heavier-than-air toxic gases roll down the mountain, Pliny, who was a chronic asthmatic, collapses. The great naturalist's rescue mission ends in absolute tragedy right there on the shoreline. Jump forward 12 hours. It's 1 a.m., and this eerie, unnatural silence falls over Pompeii. The relentless rattle of falling stones actually stops. For the survivors huddled in the dark, this feels like a gift. It's this false calm that leads them to mistakenly believe the volcano has finally exhausted itself and the worst is over. But that silence? That was just the executioner raising the axe. That false calm is shattered by a completely horrific scientific reality. You see, the massive column of ash and gas that had been towering over Vesuvius for hours finally loses its strength. It can't support its own colossal weight anymore. At 1:30 a.m., it collapses inward, unleashing a pyroclastic flow. We're talking about a catastrophic avalanche of fire, superheated gas, and rock, just rushing down the mountain at hurricane speeds. And the way the volcano executed these two sister cities was distinctly, terrifyingly brutal. Herculaneum, which had actually been spared the falling pumice, was sitting directly in the path of this first fiery avalanche. It was swallowed instantly. The heat was so unimaginable that wood turned to charcoal in a second. And the coastal elite sheltering in those stone boathouses, they were vaporized by instant thermal shock. Pompeii, on the other hand, survived the night, only to be overtaken at dawn by the fourth surge. For them, it wasn't instant vaporization. It was a devastating, agonizing asphyxiation as a scalding cloud of toxic air flooded their streets. The forensic evidence list behind is just harrowing. The victims in Pompeii were instantly cooked by intense heat, which caused their muscles to contract violently in a fraction of a second, pulling their arms and legs inward. Today, archaeologists call this the pugilistic posture, because the victims literally look like boxers shielding their faces. It proves they didn't just quietly fall asleep in the ash, right? They experienced agonizing, immediate physical trauma from the heat right before their lungs burned from the inside. And the psychological toll of this eruption, it was absolute. As black, lightning-charged clouds chased survivors across the land, the terror broke their minds just as much as their bodies. Listen to this devastating confession from 18-year-old Pliny the Younger. Amidst the screams of women and the total darkness, this terrified teenager literally believed he was witnessing the end of the entire universe. It was this dark resignation that everything, everywhere, was just ending. For centuries after that, Pompeii was entirely forgotten, swallowed by the earth, completely reclaimed by nature. But fast forward to 1863, when excavations finally began. Archaeologist Giuseppe Fiorelli noticed these strange, empty voids in the hardened ash. And inside these voids were human bones. So he has this stroke of genius. He poured liquid plaster into the hollow cavities. By carefully chipping away the surrounding ash, he resurrected the terrifying final seconds of mothers shielding children, lovers embracing, even chained guard dogs. These plaster casts take ancient history and turn it into a painfully relatable human tragedy. But honestly, perhaps the most terrifying part of this entire explainer isn't the ancient death toll, it's our modern reality. Back in 79 AD, around 30,000 people lived in the danger zone. Today, the immense, chaotic sprawl of modern Naples is built directly over the exact same geological time bomb. The danger isn't that the volcano has grown more violent. The danger is that we have crept closer. We're talking about 3 million lives currently existing right in the shadow of this mountain. 700,000 of them live in what's called the red zone, sitting exactly on top of the volcanic deposits of past eruptions, literally directly in the path those burning clouds would take. And Vesuvius is still very much active. Scientists are monitoring its every breath, every tremor, every escaping gas 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Its last eruption was in 1944. Its silence is never, ever permanent. The story of Vesuvius proves that our modern civilization, just like the ancient Romans, remains breathtakingly fragile. Pompeii isn't just a museum, it's a brutal, perfectly preserved snapshot of exactly what nature can do in less than 24 hours. The solid ground we walk on is not as stable as we'd like to believe, which leaves us with one chilling final thought.
what exactly happens to those 3 million people when the sleeping giant finally wakes